630 CHED presents The Announcers. Opinion, personality, passion. The Announcers on 630 CHED, Edmonton's breaking news and conversation station.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of The Announcers. My name is Ryan Jespersen, joined by my best friends, Jalen Nye and Andrew Grose.
Hey, Ryan Jespersen.
Hey, Jalen Nye.
Congratulations.
Aw, for what, Jalen?
Well, Mr. Jespersen's radio show, the Ryan Jespersen show right here on this station.
He's the only guy who can do that show.
Exactly.
He's the only guy who can pull that off.
Best radio show, talk show in the city.
Boom.
Voted by the Edmonton Journal.
Oh, wow. Good
And guess
for
who
you.
got runner-up?
Was it us?
Yes.
No way. Is
Congratulations to you guys. If I wouldn't have gone online and voted 741 times myself, I never would have had this honor. All I can say is that I'm getting, quite frankly, sick of walking past Andrew's desk with that big, shiny Best Talk Show Host award from the St. Albert Gazette this year. So now I have something to answer
There
back.
you
But in all seriousness, thank you guys very much. It's been an eventful week and a lot to talk about, and I didn't get a chance on my show to address the arrest of 36-year-old Jason Michael Campbell.
Oh, the babysitter.
The RCMP tipping off Edmonton police about this Kijiji advertising babysitter who's been arrested on distribution of child pornography charges.
He's been babysitting, apparently, providing babysitting services for something like 18 years.
Yeah, I think, 16, 18.
Yeah, something like that, right?
If you haven't seen a picture of this guy,
who would hire, first off,
630ched.com.
Look at him, and I don't want to just, tear a strip off.
Just say it.
He looks like he's
He looks like
looking.
what he's being charged with.
With exactly,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know who would hire that person to look after their kids. Second of all, who hires babysitters through Kijiji?
Well, I don't know yet. I mean, is that how back in the day when your kids were young, Andrew, Kijiji, we're talking like 15 years ago for your kids when Kijiji wasn't around. So how did you pick a babysitter?
Oh, we used to go to the remand center and just rip
See who was available?
little tags off the bottom of ads that inmates had posted. I don't know of any other way to hire a babysitter than to find a couple who some way else through some social circle who has a teenage son or daughter that is interested in babysitting. And if you're not able to do that, then you look at those ads that you see, honestly, in a supermarket or whatever, and you go and you meet their parents and you meet them and you ask if they've taken the babysitting course. And typically the first time you use them for only an hour during something really easy, like
see how it goes.
Yeah, baby's already asleep. We're just going to go out for a quick supper, and we'll be back in an hour. That sort of thing. But Kijiji, what? And this guy, you can't clean this guy up enough not to look dangerous.
Yeah, and listen, let me acknowledge right off the bat, I don't know about you guys, but I'm hesitant to sit here and just imply because a guy is tall and heavy set and has long, stringy, receding hair and kind of a 5-day beard growth and the eyes of a maniac. I mean, there's nothing funny about distributing child pornography.
No,
I'm not trying.
not.
I mean, I'm certainly. Hey, listen. Let me nip the protest in the bud here. I'm not trying to make light of this. I'm saying facts are facts, and the Edmonton police said as much as they could. Because keep in mind, this guy's entitled to due process. He's entitled to a trial. He's innocent until proven guilty. But one of the arresting officers telling the media, essentially, if something looks like it stinks, it probably does.
He's innocent until proven guilty, but he's clearly guilty of looking creepy. I mean, do we have to be really so politically
I don't think we
correct?
have to be that careful.
Right. I would not hire me to babysit your children. I mean, if you did not know me, listen, I'm a great babysitter and I do a great job. But if you did not know me and I just posted my picture on a good day, I honestly would not hire me. You want somebody who's just recently graduated from one of those babysitting courses, somebody who's looking to make a little extra cash while they go to high school or university. Why is a 36-year-old man babysitting? Put aside his look, put aside Kijiji, and just ask yourself that question.
Yeah, no, someone's going to write into the show, someone's going to email you, and they're going to email me, and they're going to say, my son is 36, and he's been operating a great day home for 20 years, and how dare you? Maybe. Okay, maybe. But I'm the same way, Andrew. If I'm some guy, and in my mid-40s, I decide to start putting ads out on Kijiji to look after your kids, even if you trust me from the radio, don't hire me. There's something that just is kind of weird
there's something hinky
about
there,
it.
Something just not right?
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad the story came up because you know what? At some point, you have to put your foot down and say, this is where political correctness stops. And so I'll tell you where it stops when it comes to the safety of my children.
Sure.
So I don't want to look at an ad and go, well, I don't want to prejudge this guy. He's been babysitting for 16 years. He's 36 years old. He looks like he just escaped from some kind of institution. But you know what? I'm not going to judge based on that. I'm going to put him in charge of my children.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I was the neighborhood babysitter when I was, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all the way through. I was the neighborhood babysitter. I took care of everyone's kids. Believe it or not, I took care of everyone's kids in the neighborhood. I was nonstop busy. That was my part-time job, right? That's what I did.
And you're still doing it now, really.
Well, I'm taking care of you, and I've got a couple at home, right? So, but, that's what I think of when I think of a babysitter. I think of a, 15 to 21-year-old really kind of female oftentimes, whether don't text me, don't email me, don't say that. But that's just kind of, tradition or just, history. And even, I think my brother babysat a little bit, but that's how it was done. Now, I haven't had little ones to have to worry about that, but I'm curious to know about you, Ryan. I mean, have you and your wife, left the babe with a babysitter yet, or have you started to think about that process and what are you going to do about it?
Of course we've thought about it,
Yeah.
and stories like this sure don't help anything. But my conviction echoes Andrew's. I mean, some people, to me, it'll just, if I was flipping through photos, nope. And hey, listen, we've had conversations on our show. I talked to Sylvia Chevery, a mom out of Beaumont a while ago, who appealed to Toys R Us to take off the gender branding on items, and we understand that girls can play with construction toys and boys can play with easy bake ovens and all those types of things. And I try to be open-minded to those conversations, and I think that they're good, progressive, important conversations to have. But I've got no problem saying that for most scenarios and situations, probably wouldn't even consider hiring a male babysitter regardless of age. And I don't even know why, and maybe that's not fair, but I do think that sometimes genetic code hardwires females to be better nurturers, maybe more understanding. I don't know whether I'm right
whether
or
or
wrong.
not that's true.
It doesn't matter what people think about my
opinion. It only
opinion.
matters what you think.
It's my opinion.
That's right. And you're charged with the responsibility, as is your wife, of keeping that child of yours safe and getting them out of the nest in 18 years. So you make those decisions. It doesn't matter whether or not you think it's a politically incorrect decision. If that babysitter comes to the door, and it's even the babysitter you're looking for, that 16-year-old girl who's passed the course, and you get a creepy feeling, send them away.
Off,
Yeah, not to say that females can't abuse
absolutely.
children or share child pornography. Now, in this case, police have indicated that early in their investigation, it does not appear that any of these inclinations to view or share child pornography led to actual touching incidents or incidents of abuses. The police are still interviewing these children. They're also talking to the parents. And in this case, we're going to have conversations, and many people are already having them. I heard one of my friends last night in our conversation suggest that this is victim blaming, but at some point, the conversation has to turn back on the parents, and people are going to ask the question, what were you thinking? Is
I'm
it a
asking
fair
the question
question?
already. Absolutely.
Is it fair?
Yeah.
I would like to see, I'd be very curious to see how this guy presented himself when he showed up at the front doorstep or whatever, if there was a picture in the Kijiji ad.
In other words, because the photo we're seeing is his arrest photo.
That's the arrest photo. And I mean, maybe he cleans up well, but still.
Oh, he'd have to clean up really well.
How does that happen? And he's been babysitting for 16 years.
Right. Now, here's the argument that I would anticipate parents who had hired him would say. And the argument would be, well, either we're new to town, we didn't know anybody, for whatever reason we weren't able to get another babysitter. Those would be the kind of arguments.
But seriously?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, sorry, if we can't get a babysitter that I trust, I'm
Then
not
don't
going
go
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go
the
out.
alarm bells go off, though? I mean, don't you listen to your alarm bells? Isn't something ringing at some point saying, okay, first off, he's a 36-year-old man who's babysitting. Okay, and again, don't text me, don't write me. I'm just saying it because I think we're all thinking it's still a little odd. He's a 36-year-old man who's babysitting. Is that a little alarm bell?
Yeah.
Don't you listen to it? And then when
It's
you see
common
him,
sense.
would that not just kind of meh alarm bell? And don't you listen to those gut feelings?
Can I be honest, though? I mean, I've even, and this is going to get us even further into a hole, guys, and you can help me out here, but I've even looked at male coaches for junior high school girls volleyball teams, and I've looked at male coaches for girls synchronized swimming teams, and I've kind of always been weirded out by it.
Really?
And I don't know if that's fair, but I always have been.
That's interesting. I mean, anyone who is charged with the responsibility of looking after your children should get a close examination by you as a parent. But I wouldn't. I've never had a problem with coaches, and I've had coaches. My children have had coaches, but no, I've not thought along those lines. To be honest,
You
with
never
you.
have?
No.
No, when I was in high school, my basketball coaches through the first couple of years were men. When I was playing college volleyball, my coach was a man. There was no weirdness. Didn't even think about it at that time. But again, that's 20, 30 years ago.
It was a few years ago.
Now, right? Not to say that that things didn't happen back then, because they certainly did. My husband, as a coach, he is very aware all the time.
Does he coach?
He doesn't coach women. He coaches
Right.
boys, right? But he teaches phys ed. Or has taught phys ed in high school and that sort of stuff. I guess boys there as well. But I think any type of coach has to be incredible, male or female. Doesn't matter what sex you're coaching. You have to be very, very aware of the lines and make sure that they're never ever crossed or even perceived to be crossed.
When's the last time we've seen a female coaching a male sports team at any level? Can you think of one?
No, not off the top of my head. I'm sure it must exist.
I can't think of one at any level in any sport. Maybe there's an exception, maybe not.
There
But
has
you
to
can't
be.
tell me that there
Yeah.
aren't females interested in sport. You can't tell me that there aren't capable female coaches. So why do men need to be coaching women? I digress. I don't want to get this conversation too off track. My point is just that sometimes we want to be as gender progressive and gender equal as we can, but we get weirded out by certain red flags. Now, when we talk about coaches, I mean, the guilt that some parents, I'm sure, have felt when their children have been victimized by people in positions of trust. And it's not just in the athletic realm. It could be music teachers, camp counselors, whatever the case may be. The luxury of hindsight oftentimes allows people to go, oh, well, look at those parents. What could they possibly have been thinking? But we don't know in the moment sometimes, I think, what signs to look for. And as a parent, let's say, to use an example, we talked to Sheldon Kennedy just this last week. He was thrilled to go off to Swift Current as a 16-year-old to pursue his dream of playing pro hockey. His parents had to say goodbye to their son in his early teenage years to allow him to chase this dream. How could they have possibly known what this demon known as Graham James was doing, victimizing these impressionable young men? But as a parent, you can't always be there. You have to, at a certain point, let them go.
Well, and you say you can't always see the signs because you don't always know what signs to look for. And that's where I take my hat off to law enforcement in this particular case, because they hastened their investigation into this fellow because they found out that he was babysitting. And I think to them, they looked at it, even though we say and we hope that no children that he was in the care of or no children that were in his care were touched or anything like that. He was a night security guy at a candy store downloading pictures of candy. I mean, he was clearly not suited for babysitting. So I congratulate law enforcement for saying, you know what, you might not know all the signs. When this 37-year-old guy appeared at your door that you hired from Kijiji, maybe you didn't know what you were looking for, but we do. And I think they did a good job of intervening.
And that's a really, really good point. This is a guy obviously has an interest in child pornography because that's what he's been alleged to have been doing. And if he's being trusted with the care of a
Right.
child, I mean, if it hasn't happened, there's the possibility if there's an interest there of looking at it.
Common sense
what
says
happens
that's
next,
a small step, right?
right?
Yeah.
Common sense tells you that. I don't have any empirical data to back that up, but common sense tells you that.
Isn't it sad, though, that police have to prioritize investigations when they see warning signs? Of course, logically, that suggests that other arrests or other investigations got bumped down the list, which means that police know. And if you've ever seen these displays that they'll make available at news conferences where they show the transfer with a map of Alberta, they'll show the transfer of child pornography. They're following IP addresses. They know it's happening. And yet they have to pick and choose which ones they can pursue and make arrests on. I mean, that to me is very troubling that this stuff is happening under the radar of most people, most
and,
Albertans.
One of the downsides of doing the job that we do is that a story about a child pornography bust or something usually leads us to talking to some investigator or police agency and the question needs to be asked. So, is this a big bust? I mean, how relevant is this? And it's so sad all the time because the answer is always that this is the tip of the iceberg, that they're very, very busy, that they can't get to the bottom of it all, that it's uncontrollable. It's just never, it's a question you have to ask, but it's never a great answer. And the answer is coming.
Yeah, you know what? I remember when I was at Global trying to do a feature. I think it was the ICE team at the time, right? The Integrated Child Exploitation Unit, and doing stories with them and working with them, uncovering it and going out. And wow, I mean, nonstop busy, unfortunately, nonstop busy.
But I worry about those guys.
Well,
honestly,
and that's what I was
too.
just going to say, because every time you ask them, how do you do this job? Because often they also have to look at what's online and what they're seeing and what's being done. And I was just reading an article not too long ago about a woman or a couple of investigators who just said, okay, it was like you talk about post-traumatic stress and having to deal with all of that. But thank goodness that they're there. I mean, thank goodness for you for those investigators doing that job. My gosh, I wouldn't want to do it.
We're not really worrying about upsetting people in this week's edition of The Announcers, so I'm also going to say I am absolutely gobsmacked that police officers participating in these long-term investigations and ultimately making the arrests are able to display the self-control that they do.
Agreed.
In putting these perpetrators or alleged perpetrators in handcuffs in the back of a car and getting them to be photographed at headquarters unscathed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I've kind of, in different interviews over the years, asked that question, how do you do it? And, it just takes so much discipline because they would love to do that. I shouldn't...
You know what, Andrew? I was talking to a friend, an emergency responder, about this story in particular, and I made that exact comment to him. And in his line of work, when they show up to the scene of a motor vehicle accident where the driver is drunk, in one case he told me the driver whose passenger was seriously wounded in the seat beside him was waving up through the sunroof to the Global News helicopter who was there to capture images. And this person told me that as they were cutting the wounded passenger out of her seatbelt, they had to do everything they could not to put the guy's head through the dash.
And thank goodness they did everything that they could to not do that. But here's the thing: at the end of it, I hope, and I'm sure this is a guiding light to get them to the police headquarters, to get them processed. Because at the end of the day, if they screw up at that point, there's the possibility that this person, off it goes. It's just going to get thrown out. So you know what? I hope that that's what continues to drive them every day.
It was interesting to hear from RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson this week. He says he intends to talk to the Liberal government about making internet subscriber information available to law enforcement when it comes to IP addresses.
Interesting story.
Bob Paulson saying, hey, listen, if we had to get a warrant every single time we wanted to run someone's license plate to see their name and address, we'd never get any policing work done. How do the two of you feel about the privacy of your information?
What a sticky wicket this is, because here's the thing. We talked just a moment ago about how the police can see signs that perhaps the rest of us can't. So the obvious argument on the side of giving police more power is that they see download volumes, they see unusual traffic, they see visitations to websites that are nefarious for whatever reason. Without a warrant, they can't check those out. And they need to move quickly because websites pop up and disappear, IP addresses pop up and disappear. So I totally understand that argument, and I'll just say up front, agree with it. On the other side of things, though, is that slippery slope of giving away your rights. But it feels to me that if you weigh up the two sides, and then I'll stay quiet.
Well, don't you dare stay quiet.
Well, it feels to me as though it's kind of a bit of a lose-lose when it comes to rights. So weighing up the two sides, I say that if you leave it the way it is and don't give the police that power, you're probably strengthening the rights of the people we're trying to stop.
And I was just going to say, whose rights are you worried about protecting at this point?
See, nobody
Right?
wants to give up rights. I'm guessing you don't. That's how you feel.
I'm totally conflicted on this.
Yeah, me as
I
well.
am totally conflicted. I'm right in the middle because if you say, I mean, when we talk about internet, we think about this sort of like,
giant
micro
cloud
things in the
thing.
sky, and it's not a real thing that you can hold in your hand. And so you say, well, I mean, what do I care? I mean, police can run my license plate right now and find out everything about me. So what do I care about my IP address? And we'll hear people writing into the show that if you don't have anything to hide, then you shouldn't worry about it. But if you want to talk about the, as we say in discussions on retail, the brick and mortar equivalent, if I have nothing to hide in my home, then police should just be able to walk right in without a warrant and take a look around to keep the neighborhood safe. Hell no, right? And that's whether I have anything to hide or not. I don't want law enforcement barging into my house. What is this, Moscow 40 years ago?
Sure.
There's not a chance.
But the most heinous crimes these days, though, oftentimes committed on the internet, identity theft, child pornography, that's the future. So the police have to catch up to the future somehow. And as you say, it's a conflicting argument.
But I guess if I had to say right now, if it was yes, no on a piece of paper and I had a gun to my head and I had to vote, I'll be honest, I would vote to give police warrantless access to my internet subscriber information. I would do it. But I will acknowledge, like you said, it's a slippery slope and it just opens up a huge can. I get people that campaign for rights to privacy, but I'll tell you, the thought of a child being abused at the hands of someone that has learned to hide behind blocked IP addresses, rerouted IP addresses, whatever they're doing, I want police to have as much power as they possibly can to take these people out.
Agree with you.
Followed by a justification of why they took that action. There should be some accountability.
Yeah.
Sure. And so what would that look like then?
I guess if they, I suppose if they investigated somebody's IP address, found nothing, I think at the very least there should be some record of them having done that, what caused them to have that suspicion.
Perhaps maybe you'd like to be notified that your IP address has been checked. I mean, do we need to get to that? I mean, now are we creating more work for law enforcement? They're already tapped.
I definitely don't want to do that for sure. I just want to, I want to limit, I want the police to have that power, but limit them from having absolute power. I don't want them just checking everybody's IP address with no suspicion whatsoever, no grounds whatsoever. But we often talk about needing a warrant, which means, or a search warrant, which means we need a judge because we trust the judge. Don't we trust our cops? Do we not trust our cops?
Well, we want to.
We want to, but then there's...
We want to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's and this is sort of like a 1 out of 10 issue, maybe.
Yeah.
But and the one I'm about to say here is, you hear stories colloquially, whether they're accurate or not. A cop sees a beautiful blonde, driving her truck, and so he runs her plate to find out her name, and then he pulls her over to see if these types. What's the online equivalent? I don't know. I mean, they're like, so generally speaking, do I trust the Edmonton Police Service? I sure as hell do.
Yeah.
Do I trust the RCMP? Sure do. Do I trust every single cop blindly? Of course not.
Right. But if you had to choose between I need to go to a judge to get a warrant, or I need to talk to a police officer who investigates this sort of crime and knows what to look for, whose opinion do I trust more? I trust the officer on the front line.
And I want those officers to be equipped to do whatever they need to do, like that.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to the announcers. You can catch us every Saturday here on 630 CHED. Of course, the video edition of this, produced by Kelsey Wingarrick, available at 630ched.com as well. Jalen and Andrew back on the air 2 to 6 Monday.
Go Eskimos.
Go Eskimos.
Yeah, we won't be here Monday, by the way, but the
We're
show
off
will
this
be.
week, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you weasels.
Well,
I'll be at
everybody got the week off, right?
Didn't you?
9 a.m. Am I covering everyone?
It's all Jespersen all the
God,
time.
Jeez.
Ryan.
Your dream has come true.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.